The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NFL Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NFL Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NFL.
Chrisitan Barmore gives us the update that we've all been waiting for.
You are Locked On Patriots, your daily New England Patriots podcast.
Chrisitan Barmore's 2023 was one of the lone highlights to a terrible, brutal season for the Patriots. We all had to witness that year. It was tough to watch. But Barmore, with that defense, gave us some hope week to week because Barmore was that good. In 2023, Chrisitan Barmore looked every single part of a game changer, a game wrecker from the interior defensive line. And of course, last year, he took a step back for understandable reasons. Blood clots, not once, but twice. It was a very, very tough year for Chrisitan Barmore as a human being and as a football player. So what's the latest? Well, Barmore spoke to the media, and this is from Evan Lazar of Patriots.com transcribing it with this post. Barmore says he is fully participating in the offseason program and has been cleared for football activities. This from the Boston Herald's Andrew Callahan. Barmore expects to be able to play week 1. He says he's been cleared for football activity this spring and is not afraid the blood clots will recur again. Let me start with this. For Chrisitan, the human being, this is great news. It doesn't matter if he fails to play another football game for the rest of his life. It doesn't matter if he never takes a snap. What matters the most is the fact that he's healthy again. This is somebody who's 25 currently, will turn 26 in July. A young human being with the rest of his life in front of him. So I'm so happy to hear Chrisitan Barmore say that he has been fully cleared for football activities and that he's not afraid that the blood clots will recur again. On a human level, it's fantastic news. Now let's talk about the football. If there was a time to limit Barmore, it would be right now. We're talking about voluntary workouts. If Barmore is out there taking part in these voluntary workouts, if he's a full participant, as he said, he has been a full participant. If that's the case, that should make you and me feel really good about the prospects of Barmore being a vital piece to this team and a vital piece for that defense in 2025. Because if the Patriots had any concerns, if the medical team had any concerns, if Barmore had any concerns, there's no way on God's green earth that he would be competing as a full participant in these voluntary workouts. They would say, look, let's go slow. Let's pump the brakes for a minute. Let's give this time. We got a couple of months until training camp. There's no rush. Let's slowly bring you along. But no, he's a full participant in May. That's great news. And he's fully cleared. That is a major hurdle. Because we could have heard from Barmore that, he hopes to be cleared. He's on the way to being cleared. They think he will be cleared eventually. That's different than standing up at the podium and telling the whole world, I am fully cleared for football activity. That is a clean bill of health from the medical team. That is a significant hurdle that Barmore has gotten past, maybe sooner than I thought he would. Now, of course, he did have that recurrence late in the year in 2024. So we have to make sure to be cautious about the way we talk regarding his impact on this team and make sure we're not taking it for granted. And I'm sure that the medical team has been very cautious and Barmore has been cautious. I'm sure he has had to pass every single test possible before he could go out there and speak to the media. And I don't think he speaks to the media until he's fully cleared. So great news across the board. Now let's look at expectations. Personally, I'm going to try my hardest to be patient with my expectations for Barmore, given what he has gone through the past year and a half. There is a clear difference between a voluntary workout program and playing NFL games. A clear difference. The intensity is going to be much, much higher. The physical toll is going to be much, much higher. He's going to be putting his body through a lot. So workouts on a voluntary basis versus practice, joint practices, and then getting to the games, it's a different world. So I'm going to be patient as far as my expectations. I mean, last year, Chrisitan Barmore, he took only 123 snaps on the defensive side of the ball. 123 snaps last year. If you're wondering, he took 750 snaps in 2023. So from 750 to 123, it was almost a completely lost season for Barmore, and you have to imagine there's going to be a rust factor. But even if Barmore is 75, 80% of what he was in 23 this season, he's still really good. And if you have an 80% Barmore plus Milton Williams, I'll tell you right now, I get excited just thinking of that huge potential those two men bring to this defense. A devastating pass rush. And that's not hyperbole. When I talk about a devastating pass rush from your interior defensive line, that is exactly what Barmore and Williams would bring. You go back to 2023, Pro Football Focus's Mason Cameron wrote this about Barmore. Barmore had the 9th highest interior defensive lineman ranking from Pro Football Focus. He was a top 10 interior defensive lineman in 2023. And as PFF wrote, Barmore was a force as a pass rusher in 23, earning the 7th highest pass rushing grade among interior defenders. He racked up 49 pressures, had 8 sacks. I think he finished with 8.5 to be technical, to go with 5 batted passes at the line. When Chrisitan Barmore was healthy in 2023, he was a top 10 interior defensive lineman when it comes to getting to the quarterback. What about Williams? Williams last year, this is from SI's Alex DiGastino. Williams had a 91.7 PFF pass rushing grade last year, which led all interior defenders. Milton Williams was literally the best pass rushing interior defensive lineman in the NFL last year. Barmore in 2023 was the 7th best interior defensive lineman as a pass rusher. You have the potential with Williams and Barmore, even if Barmore is 80%, you have the potential to have not one, but 2 top 8 pass rushers on the interior of the defensive line, which is going to make life miserable for any offense. I cannot overstate the impact that a healthy Chrisitan Barmore will have on this defense. I cannot overstate it. If you're an offensive line, how do you take care of those two guys? You can't double everybody on the defensive line. That's going to leave Landry and Jennings and Chason and Swinson a bunch of one-on-one opportunities. They're going to have to devote, any offense is going to have to devote extra attention to Williams and Barmore. And guess what? Barmore is versatile. The Patriots can move him across the line of scrimmage on that defensive line as well. And we haven't even discussed Keon White, but just Barmore and Williams. This is big news. This is positive news. And it's great news for Chrisitan Barmore.
There's nothing like the energy of a live game. Whether it's catching a last-minute Major League Baseball showdown or soaking up the excitement of an NBA matchup, finding great seats at a great price, though, that used to be a challenge until I found Gametime. With last-minute deals, all-in pricing, and the lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Plus, ticket prices actually drop as the beginning of the game gets closer, so you can score amazing seats at a great price. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
Derrick Henry's new contract with the Ravens validates that James Cook's contract demands are asinine.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast.
With the news of Derrick Henry's contract extension at $15 million per year, do you see that as a positive for Cook's negotiations? No, not hard to see Cook is not in the same tier as Henry, especially by volume, and that Henry's extension could play well to Bean's side of the table. Ethan, this further proves the point that I have been trying to make, that James Cook wants an unreasonable salary based on the caliber of player he is and the contributions that he makes to the team. Derrick Henry had over 2,100 yards from scrimmage and 18 touchdowns last year. He's been over 1,900 yards 3 of the last 5 seasons. He's had 7 consecutive double-digit touchdown seasons. $15 million a year makes sense for him. James Cook wanting the same thing does not compute. If Henry got $18 million a season, then we can talk about Cook at 15. That didn't happen. James Cook's a good player. I love his growth. I love the explosive plays. But pretending like he's in the Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs tier is nuts. And so this should help Brandon Beane validate that $15 million a season is an inappropriate contract request for James Cook. Next one today comes from Mike. Mike says, what training camp battle are you looking forward to the most? It's a good question. We got some good battles this year. I think generally it's the secondary. A lot of good competition in the secondary, but specifically Cam Lewis. Can draft pick Jordan Hancock, a 5th-round pick, bump him from the roster? Feels like the intent with Jordan Hancock was the exact role that Cam Lewis fills. Can play in the slot, can play safety, special teams. You get a younger, bigger, more athletic version of Cam Lewis. And so the question that I have is, do they have enough confidence in young players at safety and corner to not feel like they have to roster Cam Lewis? I like and respect Cam Lewis. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a useful player. But if the Bills were to opt for Cam Lewis over guys like Jordan Hancock or over a guy like Derek Forrest, that would bother me. And I hope that with every decision that the Bills make in finalizing this 53-man roster, I want them to opt for the ceiling and not the floor. Give me the younger, more athletic, bigger players compared to the low floor. We know what they are. There's a level of comfort. There's time on task. Like, that's good, meaningful, and important. But it's time, particularly on the defensive side of the football, for the Bills to lean into athleticism. They've done a good job in free agency and in the draft in giving them the opportunity to do that. Now let's see it happen with the roster decisions. Another example of this is Dorian Strong over Dane Jackson. Go with the younger, more athletic player that has upside compared to, oh, well, we know what this guy is. I want to see them lean into upside and not the floor with these roster decisions. So it's a secondary in general, but it's the Jordan Hancock, Derek Forrest, Cam Lewis conversation. It's the Dorian Strong, Dane Jackson conversation. Next one comes from Gadil. Gadil says, why do you think the Bills' offensive mindset of everybody eats worked while Green Bay tried to replicate it, but it didn't work as well? What did Green Bay do wrong or differently? Let's talk about this because I want to push back on this idea that it didn't work for Green Bay. It was a major, everybody came out of 2023 thinking that it was a major success for Green Bay to embrace the everybody eats, don't need a number one receiver, funnel the ball around, let Jordan Love just run the play without the burden of funneling targets to any one receiver. It was widely celebrated. You read articles about how Jordan Love loved the approach and how he just has the freedom to run the offense. They beat the Bills to this. They were the original everybody eats team. They maybe didn't brand it and talk about it to the level that the Bills did, but They were the team that did it in 2023. Everybody thought it was extremely successful. Then 2024 happened, and everybody thinks that it didn't work in Green Bay. It did. Like, what are we talking about? The Packers were 7th in EPA per pass in 2024, higher than 2023. What are we talking about? The Packers were 3rd in yards per pass in 2024. What are we talking about that it didn't work? Jordan Love got injured early in the season. He missed a couple of games, and when he initially came back, he was banged up. I think more than anything, Jordan Love needs to be a more consistent player. But we're talking about a top 25% of the league passing offense in terms of EPA, and people are wondering that it didn't work? I don't get it. Not only did it work, it was better than the year that everyone thought it did work. So I think that's a big false narrative that's going on across the league right now. And as these receivers are becoming $35, $40 million a year, you got to ask yourself some questions. Is it better to have one Jamar Chase, or is it better to have, for the same cost, 3.5 Khalil Shakirs, right? That's what you have to ask yourself. That's the reality of the approach that teams like the Bills and the Packers and the Chiefs are making, that are embracing this everybody eats mindset. What kind of year would you think Dalton Kincaid would need to have for him to win over his critics? Another year like the last two, and I'll be ready to move on from him. I would be open to see him traded before this season starts. His value, based on what people expect out of him this year, would be highest now rather than how it would be if he had another mediocre season. It's essential that his trade value would be higher right now than if he had another mediocre season. Let's talk about this. I think, first of all, measuring Dalton Kincaid's 2025 season might be difficult with raw production stats. I'm planning on a target distribution podcast in the coming weeks, which will ground me, if you will, in setting my own expectations for how I see the production distributing amongst the pass catchers this year. But there's one thing that we do know is that the Bills want to throw the ball to Dalton Kincaid. Kincaid finished last season with the highest rate of targets per route run of any NFL tight end that ran at least 200 routes last year. 0.28. The highest. He had 91 targets as a rookie in a season where, from a production perspective, it was objectively a top 10 receiving season in the history of rookie NFL tight ends. Last year, he was on pace for just shy of 100 targets if you take his 13-game pace and applied it to his 17 games. The reality is we need the results of these targets to be better. And most of that includes Josh Allen being better for Dalton Kincaid. You've heard these numbers from me. I'm going to say them again. Only 69% of Dalton Kincaid's targets were catchable, the lowest in the league among tight ends. When targeted 10 or more yards down the field, his catchable target rate was an embarrassing 37%. His separation metrics, top 10 in the NFL 2 years in a row. His yards after catch metrics, top 10 in the NFL 2 years in a row. Josh Allen has to be better for Dalton Kincaid. And there's a lot of fans that have completely soured on Kincaid, and that really surprises me. We've seen so many Bills players that frustrated fans over their first two seasons put it all together in year three. Josh Allen, Dawson Knox, Khalil Shakir, Spencer Brown, James Cook, Christian Benford, Taron Johnson. The list goes on and on. In fact, in Dave's text exchange with me, Dave went as far as to say that maybe, this is quote, maybe they were uncatchable because he's too mentally rigid and he's not adapting his route to the coverage and the team's needs. Just because he runs a great route doesn't mean that his route is run exactly in terms of what the play demands. I can't even get myself to understand that. I've never watched Dalton Kincaid a single time and thought to myself, you know what? He's too mentally rigid in how he's playing the game, and it's affecting Josh Allen from throwing him accurate passes. Never once crossed my mind. I actually wrote an article a few months ago breaking down Dalton Kincaid from every angle. And in the article, I included a film reel of every single Dalton Kincaid target from 2024. The truth, folks, always in the tape. You want the answer? Watch the tape. Separation is happening. Josh Allen has got to throw more accurate passes to Dalton Kincaid. And I'm going to put a link in today's show notes to that article if you want to read it and watch the reel. Most importantly, watch the film reel. 90-something targets or however many targets he had in succession, showing you what he did on the field and what the results of those targets were. The circumstances for Kincaid in 2024 tell the story. He's extremely gifted. He's getting open. He's producing after the catch. He's had plenty of flashes. But there's a lot of fans that are sour on Dalton Kincaid. Let it play out. Open your mind to the possibility that he can be a big-time answer for this offense. He's been heavily featured for 2 years. The Bills' offense has been really good. Has it been perfect? No. Did he meet production expectations this past season? No. Are there reasons for that? Absolutely. I've given him time and time again. But we want to resolve to saying that he's too mentally rigid to run the play correctly? I can't even get myself to understand that. And as for trading Kincaid, I am far more concerned about missing out on Dalton Kincaid's ceiling than gaining whatever draft capital you would get by trading him. Dave even said that Kincaid's skill set is redundant in this offense. By what player? What player is like Kincaid? None of them. But these are real things that people believe. I'm not promising you that Dalton Kincaid is going to be the next greatest tight end in the NFL. I think he's an extremely talented player that has had very good moments, that has very good metrics, and there's very clear explanations as to maybe why 2024 didn't go the way we wanted it to. Can we let it play out? Can we give the guy a chance? He's got a lot of ceiling. He's got a lot of ability, and he can really matter a ton for this offense. And this team wants to throw him the ball as evidenced by the numbers. I'm not promising you that he's going to be amazing. I think there's a good chance that he is. But can we open our mind to the possibility that it all comes together this season like it has for so many other Bills players in year 3? Especially for a guy that's late to playing football. I feel like it's the Spencer Brown conversation all over again. I like how that one turned out. We'll see how this one goes.
The NBA playoffs roll on, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. FanDuel makes it easy, whether it's picking your favorite team or diving into player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists. There's so many ways to bet your favorite props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
You can't be mad at Caleb Williams and his dad for not wanting to play for the Chicago Bears at first.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast.
I want to go through the fallout of this bombshell ESPN report, details of a Seth Wickersham book where he talked to Caleb Williams and his dad, Carl Williams, about the pre-draft process. Didn't want to be picked by the Chicago Bears, wanted to be a Minnesota Viking instead. A lot of controversy surrounding this, but I think we're getting some of the wrong takeaways from this, that I think Caleb Williams and his dad were right about pretty much everything that they wanted. They didn't get everything that they wanted, but I think they were justified in feeling a lot of the ways that they did. And to me, this is a story more about like how grateful we should be that things didn't go differently. As bad as the actual season went for Caleb Williams, it could have gotten a lot worse a lot sooner. And I think Bears fans can be left feeling like, hey, this is headed in a much better direction than it could have been. So we'll take a look at where some of the blame belongs here and how things potentially could have gone worse and where things then lie moving forward. Because that's my big takeaway, is that Caleb Williams is right about this. And as much as you might not want that to be true, it is true. Like, yes, he and his dad thought the Bears were not a good place for a quarterback to go. That has been correct, at least in my entire lifetime and for some time before that. This has not been an organization with the kind of infrastructure to develop a quarterback. Caleb Williams and his dad were not confident in the Bears coaching staff, and particularly unhappy with offensive coordinator Shane Waldron being the hire there. And lo and behold, they were correct. And Caleb Williams and his dad were upset about the rookie wage scale and thought his son deserved to be paid more money. Like, I think that's also true, even though maybe, you want him to just suck it up and play by the rules. I don't think they were unjust in wanting so many of the things that they wanted. Like, yes, a quarterback should have preferred Kevin O'Connell as an offensive coach to Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron. So it just feels to me like there's a certain level of like they were right, and I can't be mad about it. And so if I can't be mad about them being right about all of these things, what I can do is look at and see what Caleb Williams and to some extent his dad did in spite of all of their feelings about the Bears, and what everyone involved in this process did to get us to where we are today. And that's kind of what I leave as a takeaway here is like some of this stuff maybe we wondered about, some of this stuff maybe we had heard rumors or speculation or theories as to what the pre-draft process was like and what Caleb Williams did and didn't want. But from the moment Caleb Williams was drafted number 1 overall by the Chicago Bears, there was no semblance of a doubt that he was embracing this opportunity and was all in on making this work. Like, once he got to the point where he said, well, there's nothing else I can do. I'm going to be drafted number 1 of the Bears. This is the team I'm going to have to play for my rookie season. He leaned into that fully. He said, all right, this is my team. This is my offensive coordinator. This is my head coach. And despite my long list of reservations about those things ahead of time, there's now nothing I can do about it. So what can I do? Well, I can just try and make the most out of whatever this situation is going to be and have as much success as I possibly can squeeze out of it. And obviously, as a team, the Bears did not have that kind of success, and it led to the firing of Shane Waldron and then Matt Eberflus. But all along the way, Caleb Williams never caused a public problem. We don't know what was said behind the scenes, in the locker room, in meetings with coaches or with Ryan Poles or whatever, but we never heard about Caleb Williams being truly disgruntled. I think there were players that were upset about the offense, and like that was all like reasonable stuff, but there was never a whisper of Caleb doesn't want to be here. There was never a whisper of, is Caleb going to want to be traded, right? Like, none of this stuff was a part of the controversy around Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron. It was just universally agreed that, like, hey, these were bad coaches that did poorly, but it could have been Caleb making it so much more messy. There could have been more leaks. And we'll talk about how, especially in the draft process, that this could have gone worse. But Caleb sat there and took his medicine. He put up with it and kind of shut up about it. For whatever he and his dad were worried about and complaining about in the pre-draft process, Caleb Williams ate it, swallowed his pride, and said, let's get to work. Let's make this happen. And you can only imagine then that as Caleb says, all right, I got to make the best out of this worst situation, this less than ideal spot, less than ideal team, even worse than that, coaches, how I'll try and make this worse the best I can, all while watching Jaden Daniels go 1 pick later to a Washington Commanders team that also didn't deserve any benefit of the doubt as far as organizational stability goes. I don't think Jaden Daniels was drafted to Washington and everyone said, wow, this is clearly going to be this home run fit right out of the draft. But as it turns out, Caleb Williams' quarterback coach, as Jaden Daniels' offensive coordinator, leads them to a super successful rookie season. And can you imagine how much that had to hurt for Caleb Williams? Not only in general, it hurts when you see a direct competitor, your rival in some ways, going and being more successful than you. That's always going to hurt. But especially when you know deep down inside that you were put in a position that you didn't want to be put at and that you knew would hold you back from being able to be as successful as that other person, right? It's not like Caleb Williams could come to Chicago, give it his best shot, and you know what? Jaden Daniels was still just better. And sometimes you have to chalk it up and say, you know what? You got the best of me. You were better than I was. I can be honorable in defeat there. But if you're Caleb Williams, aren't you looking around going, gosh darn it, I knew this would happen. I knew this team wasn't going to put me in a position to succeed. I knew this offensive coordinator was going to screw me. And all of it happened the way Caleb thought it would, and he still just had to watch it happen and had to watch Jaden Daniels succeed with his college coach. And for Caleb Williams to experience all of that and not make it more of a public stink says a lot about Caleb Williams' character and a lot about his commitment to the Bears and his willingness to see this out, right? And I think we should be grateful for that he could have been fed up with all of this and made much more of a stink and much more of a trouble. He could have demanded to be traded at the deadline. Fire Shane Waldron or you got to trade me. Or even after they fire Shane Waldron, fire you, say, trade me. I can't win here. Get me the heck out of here. And he didn't. At least publicly, he stayed quiet, kept his head down, kept working, was humble and gracious at every turn, and always tried to remain optimistic and hardworking and just tried to figure it out. And to me, all of this is makes me feel better about Caleb Williams. It's more endearing to Caleb Williams rather than revealing some sort of, dramatic diva personality behind the scenes. No, how he acted in public says everything. And the fact that he felt differently in private speaks even greater to the way that he acted with the Chicago Bears.